Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Karen. So I'm doing a video on matchmaking and matchmakers in the church today and why it's not necessary. Now, matchmakers back in Jewish tradition, or back in the day in biblical times, basically had three main functions. The first function was to keep communities intact, to maintain communities. Number two, if there were people in small communities and they needed to find someone who knew a broader base of people, they would go to matchmakers. Number three is to make sure that the family connections would get strengthened by the marriage and not lessen. Now, also, what we would equate a marriage back into the day that involved matchmakers would be the same as arranged marriages today, essentially. Now, how have things changed since back in the biblical times as well? Communities have grown. So, number one, there's no need for matchmaking because essentially they went to the matchmakers to maintain their family line as well as to gain more access to a broader base of people. Well, we have 6 billion plus people on the earth today, so we don't need that. Number two, we don't do arranged marriages in Christianity. And when Jesus came, he broke down with the new covenant. Gentiles and Jewish people were under the new covenant. Gentiles were grafted in. So there was no need to maintain a family line. Number three, we no longer live in small communities. Like I said before, there's no need to do that. As well as we don't get married to strengthen the family bonds or the family connections or whatever the case may be. We don't do that in today's society. So the way that matchmakers functioned back then was an essential part of what was needed to maintain standards set by God, but it's not needed today. Even in the New Testament, you don't see matchmakers. You hear Jesus preaching the gospel, and you hear the apostles trying to follow that which he said to do, which is to go tell the world about the gospel. You don't hear or you don't see Paul talking about matchmaking and this person needs to be with that person. You don't hear Jesus doing that. You don't hear the apostles in the new church. They basically broke bread together. They meditated on the word, and they were about spreading the gospel. And also, I want to bring up online dating because online dating is also another form of matchmaking, which they basically go by personality test as well. Now, you've heard some people say in the church that in this area this person makes up, and in the other area this other person makes up. How would you know that if you're online dating? Matchmaking in today's society would be the equivalent of wearing a headdress in today's society. I don't think it's necessary. There's even a funny little clip that I've posted in the description box below in the Fiddler's Roof, where the girls are talking about first about how they want to be matched up, and then at the end they said, as long as he's a matchless man, he's for me. Find me no find, catch me no catch. And I feel the same way. We need to be focused on God's will for our lives and his mission, spreading the gospel. And once we're focused on that, if he wants us to be married, then we'll be married. If he doesn't want us to be married, then he won't bring that person into our life. We don't need to be matchmaking in the church. Now, God may use someone who has wisdom and who think that two people may be good together, okay. But there's no purposely going from person to person, checking this, checking that, there's none of that. Okay? Like there doesn't need to be any matchmaking in the church today. So that's my spiel on matchmaking and why I think that we don't need matchmaking in today's society, as well as there were a few people that could be seen as matchmakers in the Old Testament when Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac, as well as Saul when he wanted to marry his daughter to David for the wrong reasons, and it was, as well as Naomi. But like I said before, that was for different functions and reasons than what we need in today's society. And alright guys, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll post the Fiddler on the Roof song in the description box below.